Great, thank you. Thank you for joining us today for Nutrition Capital Network's first conference call of 2013, Due Diligence, Discovery, and Assessment of Online Business Activity. My name is Mike Dofish, and I'm an Executive Director of Nutrition Capital Network, and I'm joined by my colleague Grant Ferrier, CEO and co-founder of Nutrition Capital Network. Today's conference call is brought to you by Nutrition Capital Network and our digital media partner and sponsor, Jeff Smith Consulting. Joining us from Jeff Smith Consulting is Adam Taff and Jeff Smith. During this call today, you can ask questions either by email or directly to our speakers at the end of the conference call. If you want to email me any questions, you can do so now and during the conference call. Before we start the presentation, I wanted to say a few words about Nutrition Capital Network and our mission. We were founded in 2007 with the goal of facilitating the financing and partnering process of the next generation of successful brands and technologies in the nutrition, health and wellness, natural and organic, and green product industries. We do this through our investor meetings and virtual tools such as this conference call. On slide 4, you will see our schedule of events for 2013. Our next in-person event will be at Expo West on March 8th for investors, where we will be having a discussion panel, including an update on financings and transactions, and we'll be handing out a list of exhibiting companies that are currently seeking capital. The next investor meeting is April 28th and 29th in New York at the Harvard Club. Our event precedes Virgo's supply-side marketplace at the Javits Center starting on April 30th. And for those not familiar with this event, this is the East Coast version of Supply-Side West. We'll be holding an information session at Expo East in September, and our fall investor meeting will be October 28th and 29th in San Francisco. We will also be holding our 5th investor meeting at Supply-Side West on November 13th, showcasing innovative ingredients and technologies serving the nutrition industry. Over the past 5 years, we have reviewed over 1,200 business plans, with the majority coming from organic and natural foods, followed by ingredients, supplements, and personal care, as you will see on slide 6. As part of our service to our Cornerstone members, we also provide tracking and analysis of the transactions and financing in our space. We just completed our update for 2012, and as you can see on slide 7, total M&A was slightly down in 2012, but overall transactions was slightly up over 2011, with a total of 243 transactions for the year. This increase came primarily in financing, and in particular where technology intersects with health and wellness, such as the company Farmago, which is an online farmers market that recently raised $8 million from traditional technology investors, as well as one of our founding members, Sugar Capital. Other notable natural and organic food and beverage financing in 2012 included Kavita, which was a spring 2012 presenting company, Revolution Foods, and Happy Family, Happy Baby, which was a fall 2008 NCN presenting company. We also want to thank all of our supporting sponsors and Cornerstone members for their continued support. We really couldn't be able to do what we do without them, and you'll see a full list of sponsors on slide 8 and a partial list of our Cornerstone members on slide 9. Today's presentation is provided by NCN's digital media partner, Jeff Smith Consulting. JSC has been providing comprehensive online growth solutions for their portfolio clients for over 18 years. They are a full-service firm, meaning that they begin with strategic analysis and consulting and then provide both development and marketing solutions for companies across all industries. Their sole focus is on building revenue growth and value, and they do it through the mantra of acquisition, conversion, retention, and monetization of traffic to their clients' web properties. JSC has particular expertise in the health, nutritional, supplement, and beauty spaces. Today, 2 members of JSC's management team will be talking about something that should be very interesting to both the investors and individual businesses on this call. One is the due diligence process of evaluating a company's online growth potential, and the other is the actual tools and programs that are implemented to achieve that growth. Jeff Smith is the founder and CEO of Jeff Smith Consulting, and for the past 18 years has been considered a leading expert on search algorithms, content aggregation software, mobile applications, and online conversion. Jeff works with equity and venture capital investors to provide expert analysis and recommendations for investment strategies. And we welcome Jeff and thank you for being here. And Adam Taff is the president of JSC, a former Navy fighter pilot who has been working with Jeff for over 6 years. Adam is an online marketing expert who has managed numerous e-commerce strategic programs for JSC's clients, producing millions of dollars in incremental revenue through the programs we will hear about today. Welcome, Adam. Thank you for being here. And so, if we're ready to get started, I'll hand it over to Adam for the presentation. And Adam, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Mike. And hi, everybody. I'm Adam Taff. And on behalf of Jeff Smith, I'd like to welcome you to today's discussion. Our goal today is to cover two primary topics that should be both fun and interesting for the investors on the call as well as individual businesses that are on the call. Jeff and I will take turns covering different aspects of each component. And for those of you who have the slide deck pulled up, we'll be referencing the slides as we go. If you don't have the deck handy, no worries. The discussion is designed to be followed in a conversational format. So I'm moving now to slides 11 and 12, which just give a very brief background information about our philosophy as a firm. And you'll note that we are all about producing sustainable revenue-generating programs for our clients. And this presentation is going to focus on how we and firms like ours actually do that. So first we do our homework, which will be the due diligence portion, which Jeff is going to cover, and then we actually implement those programs to achieve that sustainable growth. So let's go to slide 13 right now, and it's entitled Online Due Diligence, and to lead us through this first portion of the discussion is Jeff Smith. So Jeff, over to you.
Hey, thanks, Adam, and thanks everybody for joining us today. We'll try to make this format as entertaining as we can. So essentially, real quick as an introduction, JSC works primarily now and has for the last 6 years with private equity firms to essentially provide two services. The first service is a due diligence piece where we go and actually look at the internet side of the business. So whether it's pre-acquisition or post-acquisition, we look and determine what possible revenue sources are there. Is there any additional EBITDA that can be grabbed either post or pre-acquisition? And then the other piece that sort of came on top of that was the fact that several of the firms did not have an on-site group. And what that would mean was that they essentially did not have anybody who could then take this plan and implement it. And so several years ago, we formed an on-site group, and we provide that service for several of our private equity firms and other investors. So essentially, it doesn't do them much good that we provide them all the information as to what they might be able to do, and then they're not able to go do it. And so now, if the company itself is large enough and has their own internal team, then we will oftentimes provide them with a roadmap as to what we see that they could benefit from in terms of additional revenue mostly. And that's where our acquisition, conversion, retention, monetization comes from. And we'll cover those things in some detail here, and then obviously we can go through some questions. But to get into the slide here, we talk about what are the areas that we cover in our due diligence report. And those that are important start with just a business analysis online. And I do want to make that distinction. We spend all of our time on the online side of the business. We don't really push into the offline business or anything related to that. And so that's kind of why we specialize in just the online piece. So we'll look at traffic sources. We'll look at conversion rates. We'll look at trends. Obviously, there's a lot of seasonal business that's out there, so we want to make sure that everybody is taking full advantage of that. We'll look at different metrics and then compare them not only to our other clients that we might have in the same space, obviously confidentially, and just give a general view, as well as go out and look at the industry in general. And the internet has a tremendous amount of information that can be gained from competitors and from clients, and that's sort of the next step here when we look at the market analysis. So what's out there? Where should you be looking in terms of revenue sources? Oftentimes, I know everybody gets emails from friends or neighbors that says, you know, this company's doing 20 million and you're doing 5. Why is that? And it's often, you know, somewhat simple to answer, and so we'll talk a little bit about that as well. We look at different projections and recommendations. So a lot of times the clients will say, you know, I'd love to know what your thoughts are on what our projection should be for the next 24 months. And sometimes it's just a second opinion, if you will. So once we have this data, then we'll look at things in terms of, you know, how to use it. So if the investment's already been made and we're coming in a little bit late, or we're coming in after the fact, then obviously the investment's already been made, and we'll start looking at what a 3 to 5 year plan might be. The next step is the analysis and recommendations as it relates to the requirements for growth. And a lot of the time, if not most of the time, most of our clients are understaffed, or most of our targets are understaffed. They may have one person or two people that have volunteered to do the internet in some way, shape, or form, but before large hiring can be done, obviously investors as well as clients want to know, okay, what are these people going to do? What's their reporting going to look like? What is the tracking going to look like? So we'll help them understand both the requirements for growth. It might be software, but a lot of the times it is personnel. It is not uncommon that we'll be asked to take a look at the existing personnel, and we're very good and gentle with that, where we essentially go in and decide, okay, who is you know, who's doing a great job, and so on and so forth. And then finally, you'll see this in an eye chart at the end of one of these slides here. We do offer pro forma projections where we'll go through each individual tactic and we'll give our best opinion as to where we think the growth is and how much the growth will be in terms of dollars and cents, as well as how much it'll cost. And so big and small, I mean, we've been in very, very large companies where I would have thought this would already have been done. We've been in very small companies where I wouldn't have thought it would be done. But we don't find it very often that there's a very focused and a very well put together, I guess you would say, pro forma for just the internet side. There might be a swag, or they might say, okay, we've always done 5 million. We do 30 million offline. We do 5 million online. So that seems about right. But what we like to say is, you know, oftentimes online will have a better EBITDA view. So if we can generate additional EBITDA, either pre-sale of the company, then, you know, that oftentimes is what we will be able to do. Maybe a year out from the sale, go ahead and see, you know, make sure we can get as much EBITDA in the game as possible if that's where the sale is going to come down. On the next slide, you'll see just an example of a table of contents. It just kind of shows you, obviously, there's an executive summary. There's an industry market analysis and a competitive analysis. And this is, again, where we can go out and physically tell you what the competitors are doing, really down to the keywords. So if they're buying keywords, if they're out doing things online, we can pretty much tell what it is that they're doing. And then that gives everybody a good idea as to whether the playing field's level or whether there's a lot of, you know, whether we have a lot of work to do to catch up to those competitors. But it just gives everybody a really nice answer so that when questions are asked, like, why aren't we 20 million instead of 5, then, you know, answers can be given. And they're not oftentimes the most popular answers, but they're at least legitimate and very honest answers. We then look at things like management, technology, marketing. I'm going to talk real quickly about some elements that are what we call our truths. And so this is really what I hope you guys can take away actionable from this call and actually use these things today if you wanted to go out and do a little bit of your own due diligence work. So I'm going to go over those here in a second. But we do look at the management, we look at the technologies in place, we look at marketing, and then we sort of relay them back to those best practices and make sure that the things we want to do can actually be done. And then, again, this is a little redundant, but things like growth forecasts, you know, changes required to maximize growth, you know, and then an overall report would be in there as well. And, again, because I was trained, I sold my first company to a private equity when I was 28 years old. I've been trained, so everything we do, and it may be a little bit too much, but everything we do is about growth and about money and about, what are we going to gain here? We're not doing this for fun or for rewards. We're doing this to try to obtain a goal, and that goal is financial in almost all cases. I mean, very rarely do we see that it's not. So as we get to the next slide, you're going to see it says third-party metrics and data-driven analysis. Again, this is a little bit of an eye chart here, but the point is that this is just an example of the type of data that we get, whether it be from Alexa, whether it be from affiliate program data that we've either run or that's out there, organic traffic and source data from Google, email program metrics that are very important, Amazon, obviously, if you're selling through that channel, and then paid search data as well. And then on the next slide, which is customized metrics, we also have a lot of metrics that we use internally. Right now, one of the things we're tracking very big for 2013 is the amount of emails that are being opened on mobile devices. We see a huge increase over last year. We're looking at 30% now to 40% of emails are being opened on mobile devices of all different types. And so as an example, we will track emails that are sent out by our clients for a week or a month or so, and then we can report back exactly which browsers are being used, exactly what email devices are being used, and then we can track that back to conversion, because you'll obviously see a much lower conversion on a mobile device than you will, say, on an iPad, which in some cases, and I should note that 30% to 40% does include about 10% of iPad. So, or those type of devices. So it's important to note there as well that iPads are included. But we're seeing that as a large, growth potential. And so obviously we want to talk about responsive designs, which are designs of websites that respond automatically to the type of machine that's viewing it. So if it's a cell phone, it morphs itself into a cell phone layout. If it's an iPad, it morphs itself into an iPad layout. And all of those things can move the needle. And so when you start moving the needle by, say, 5%, and you're not really spending more, but you're really just, you're adjusting some things, and sometimes that does take some capital to adjust a few things in terms of development, but over time, we're not going to see a move away from mobile. And so a lot of times people will ask us, well, geez, this mobile thing, I mean, obviously with Facebook's IPO, everybody's talking about mobile revenue, and it's gotten this sort of favored nation status, I guess, these days, but we actually are seeing a pretty large shift when it comes to mobile. So, for instance, if you have a site that doesn't respond well to mobile and you're getting 20% of your traffic on your email via mobile, there's real money there that can be harvested. And so, and to that end, what I'd like to do is I'd like to share with you a few of these sort of truths that we spoke about. And Adam actually spoke at the conference, the NCN conference, and covered a few of these elements. And so on our website, which is jeffsmithconsulting.com, you'll actually see some of these truths as well. And so it's kind of nice to be able to, to see them. So you can just download them, I guess is what I should say. You just go ahead and download them right there, and it's pretty easy to do. So let's talk about those. So essentially, you have several situations where when we go in, probably the largest one for now and that would make the most sense is email. So if we go in and we look at a company and we do some initial analysis on the company and we find out that it's an e-commerce-based company and it's not obtaining 50% of its revenue from email, then that's one of those truths that we go out and say, you know what, we could be doing more with this. We could be obtaining more than than's out there. So let's say you're only getting 20% of your revenue. Well, then you at least know that you have some room to go out and get additional revenue from sending emails. Now, a lot of the times you're looking at sending more emails. So people say, well, wait a second. You want me to send more emails? And again, we're very factual, we're fact-based. We understand that, some people talk about spam and, you shouldn't send out that many or you should send out that many. I mean, at the end of the day for us, it's about the results. And so we're not necessarily saying you have to do it. We're just saying if you did do it, then you're most likely looking at a pretty significant increase in terms of revenue. And so that's an easy one. Another one that is important is cart recovery. It's become very common today, but still not often done, where essentially there's a whole bunch of people that abandon. I mean, you may have 70% of the people that visit your cart abandon your carts, and they abandon for all different reasons. They don't abandon just because they don't want to buy from you. They abandon because their cell phone rings, or they get a text, or their boss comes in and they close the machine down because they're not supposed to be buying things at this time, or what have you. So by doing cart recovery, it's very common that you can recover 19% or thereabouts of those orders that were lost. And so again, it's very simple math. If we find that a company is not doing cart recovery and we look at their analysis and we find that they do have, let's say, 60% cart abandonment, then we can pretty much add that to the pro forma financially because we've done this enough times that we know that cart recovery is going to work for them. I'm going to skip over retargeting. Retargeting it's a nice 13% lift, and that's essentially where you create banner ads that follow the person. And again, this is a pretty standard technique, but Google allows you to do this so that when you view an ad for the company and they go to another site that's serving Google ads, you can actually have your ad show so the ad essentially follows the person, and that's called retargeting. That's a nice lift. And then finally, things like video. Video is becoming, you can look at your consumption rates of your website, which means that a product page maybe gets a consumption rating of 3, and if you added video, it might double your consumption rating. And so we spend a lot of time on consumption to determine, number one, and that also goes for email, how long are people consuming your email? How long are they consuming your web page? And just by increasing your consumption rate, you can increase your conversion rate, pretty substantially. So those are the basics, I guess, in terms of what I wanted to cover in terms of the due diligence piece. But again, the most of the work that we're doing is going into the company, determining what it is that they may be missing or what it is that might be there for them in terms of adding. And then what we'll do is we'll go program by program, and then at the end of the period, and that's the eye chart that you see at the end of one of the slides there, is we will literally put together a pro forma for the next 3 years that defines those growth rates. Now, year 1 is much better than year 3, obviously, and year 3 can be a little bit rough depending upon, the accuracy of it, but at least it will show that a certain percentage increase across all of these elements is material. And then what Adam's going to cover now is essentially the second part, which is what our on-site group does. And that's where once we've told everyone what we wanted to do, or once we told everyone what they would do, very often they just said, well, you just do it. So that was something that happened several years ago with a lot of the private equity firms, is they said, okay, great, love it, but we're tired of just being the people that tell them what to do. We actually want you to do it now. And I said, great. And so we've got a great team of people who can put things together and actually build these programs. And so we're very proud of that, and Adam leads that. And so, Adam, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you at this point. So thank you guys again for listening, and I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay, so this is a good segue. If you saw the pro forma, which was on slide 18, and once again, it's an eye chart, but on that chart, we covered 3 basic components of a business. What are revenue generating? What kind of expenses, fixed expenses, are we going to have to invest in to make that happen, which would be generally resources, individuals, and then what's the variable cost that we might incur to also produce that revenue, and those are generally marketing expenses. And we let the data speak for itself, so we take an agnostic approach. If we don't think there's any money in the program, we don't recommend it, or we take it off the board, and we only focus on things that can drive sustainable, incremental revenue. So let's go to slide 19 now. This will be the second half of the presentation. And we're going to talk about the information that we just discovered, which Jeff just went over, and now how we're actually going to translate that and transform that into actual revenue for our company or for our investment. So on slide 19, we've listed some of the bread and butter e-commerce programs that most companies employ to grow their online business.
some, maybe all of these, look familiar to us. So search engine optimization, a term that most of us are familiar with, whether we understand it completely or not, but we get it to some degree. Affiliate marketing, once again, we probably understand the term. Maybe we don't really know how it's implemented that well, but that rings a bell. PPC, or paid search marketing, it's the ads that we all see on the right side of Google, so we all understand what that is. Maybe we don't consider ourselves to be really knowledgeable, but we know that that exists. Email marketing, Jeff's already touched on it quite a bit. I'm going to hit it again hard for about 60 seconds and a few slides, just to really make sure you get the point, which I know you do, is that it's really, really important. If there's one thing that we know, if there's 5 programs that are deficient in a company, and email marketing is one of them, that's the first thing we're going to focus on, because it's so important to actual revenue generation for a company. And then we're going to touch on something that's called partner marketing, which we believe is really important and critical. It happens to be a kind of a core competency of ours, and give you a flavor for how a real expert, a real talented team can go in and put together some very comprehensive programs for your company and really separate you from your competition. So one important note I want to make here, and it's we all been to karaoke night, so we all understand that we can get up on a stage and sing, and we've all taken a bat, we can hit a softball or a baseball, but clearly we all understand when we're listening to a very talented singer or watching a very talented professional athlete, and the point is that you bet anybody can get on and start a paid search program or an affiliate program or send out an email, but if you get a really talented and experienced manager of those programs, you will see a night and day difference. And I just want to plant that seed that just because these programs exist doesn't mean they're going to be successful. Just like a singer, we need to add a little talent and a little practice before we can really make these programs hum. So let's go to slide 20, and we're going to talk just a little bit in detail about each one of these programs. And these aren't the only programs that are e-commerce programs to drive incremental revenue for a business. Once again, these are the bread and butter programs that almost all companies employ in some fashion or another. The first is SEO. Think about online marketing like you would a brick and mortar store. What are some of the important things to consider when marketing your store? Certainly location, I think we would all agree, is probably the most important. But what else? So our branding, clearly, if we think about our brick and mortar store, what do we do there? The colors that we're going to use in the store, the logo that we have on our front window, maybe some additional signage out front, a catchphrase that we want people to remember when they see our product. All those are an important part of marketing for brick and mortar, as they obviously are online. What else? What do we clearly need to do? We need to get people to actually come by the store and then come in the store. So how do we do that? We need to have curb appeal, obviously. Lighting would be effective, the layout of the store to make it very comfortable for people. Maybe a big 30% off sale that just grabs people's attention as they walk by. So we understand that on a brick and mortar store, and clearly all those things are important online as well. And while we have a lot of control over what our site looks like and how a visitor can interact once they get in our store, so to speak, the question is, how do we actually get people to find us and come in for a visit? You know, we know how to find a brick and mortar store, but in the virtual world of cyberspace on the internet, there's no guarantee that we're going to be able to put our business on the corner of 5th and Main Street. So we've got to use tactics called search engine optimization, or SEO, to make that effective. Without it, we're going to have, how many companies have you heard that have spent a lot of money and time building a website, and then immediately thereafter, the management team and the whole company is very disappointed because they're not getting the traffic they believe would just automatically find the site. Well, in the world that we live in, and the world that all of us live in online, it just doesn't happen that way. We have to use specific tactics and specific expertise to ensure that the key term, this is what I'd like you to take away from this part of the discussion, the key terms that are important to our audience and that we know that are important to our business, we have to be able to rank organically for those terms in order for people to find us in an effective manner. So I think that makes sense to us. So let's go to slide 21 and go and talk about it in just a little more detail. So think about the business that you're in. Maybe you're an investor on the call today. Maybe you're a business owner on the call today. But it's an important business for you, right? So what are the key terms that if we knew that we had to go on the internet and only pick 2 or 3 key words or key terms for people to find our business, what would they be? And I think we all probably have a pretty good feel for that. Maybe you're an investment firm, you specialize in investing in chia seed or quinoa eco-friendly startups. Or maybe you're the business. Maybe you're a business that sells a chia seed or a quinoa health drink. A quinoa health drink, which I would like to try. So we ask ourselves, what do I want a visitor to do when they get to my site? And the answer usually is we want them to consume my content, maybe submit an inquiry for more information, or more often than not, we want them to purchase our product. When we know that, and we know our product and the key terms for our product, then we can deduce what key terms will be important for us to win in organic search. So do we want to rank for the keyword chia? Maybe. If so, can we actually have success ranking for that word based on the existing competitors in the marketplace? It's also a very general term. So maybe we would say, let's get a little more specific and rank for the term chia seed health drink. That's probably a little more accurately, a more accurate definition of our target audience. But then we ask the question, is there really enough search traffic on that term that's going to get us to where we want to be in the long run because it's a little more of a specific term? So those are important questions to ask, and it's important for an experienced technician to be able to determine that and decide what is going to be the most effective use of our wording that we're going to use in the content on our site, and importantly in the meta tags, which is the programming code that is written to tell the search engine spiders what to look for on our website. Because this is an important point to note, gang. Our website, depending on the strength of it, or what Google calls PageRank, determines how much power we have to try to compete for key terms. CNN.com, ESPN.com, they have a tremendous amount of PageRank, and so they have the ability to use that to drive certain terms up to the first position on page 1 of our organic search. If we just started our new chia seed fruit drink company, we might not have hardly any juice at all. We call it juice or power. So we have to be very careful about how we're going to compete and assign our limited juice to which words. So once we understand all those components and that we don't have carte blanche just to try to search every term, we can really now start to refine what our strategy is going to be. But the question is, how do we really know which keywords we should be competing for, and if we're going to be wasting our time and our effort and our precious dollars and not get any success? So with that question, let's go to slide 22 and see if we can start answering this question. The next program we talk about is affiliate marketing. This lets the power of a network of affiliates, or publishers as they're called, be your expanded sales force. You provide them with the content and the promotional materials that you want. You give them some guidelines and limitations on how they can use that material, and then you allow them to go out and use their web audience. Maybe it's a newsletter mailing list, or maybe it's from their website traffic, or maybe they have a blog, and then they go out and promote your product, and they earn commissions from sales of your product. And in doing so, we start to see trends on which text ads or which banner ads are getting the most clicks and then are converting into the most customers. We start to see which venue is most effective, maybe web traffic or maybe a blog or maybe email. And then we see which one of our products is producing the most sales. We can start to use that information that product A, for example, sells best using the third ad copy that we've tried, and it performs best with women aged 35 to 49 because we're able to pick up some of those metrics based on our affiliate demographics into our own marketing efforts. So as I say that, let's look at slide 23. And all we've done is offered a percentage commission to these affiliates by selling our product, which is really nice. So we rely on our affiliate partners to foot the bill for their own email sends, for their own website maintenance, and to fund their own blog editors. And we only pay for performance, if you will. So if they sell a product, we've agreed to pay them a commission. It truly is a low-risk, pay-per-performance program that is very appealing to a lot of companies. Let's go to slide 24 now and go to paid search. Paid search, sometimes referred to as PPC or CPC, is a very effective revenue-generating tool, but we like to think of it as its primary benefit as a market intelligence tool, and I'll explain that in a second. Google, I think we're all probably familiar with, is by far the biggest player in the space, producing about 75 cents of every dollar that's earned from paid search revenue. The other players, the big players, are Bing and Yahoo, which we're all probably familiar with.
So it's important to understand that in addition to the size, Google's an expert of sucking dollars out of your pocket. So if you're not really sharp at what you're doing with paid search, before you drop your credit card and say, let's give it a try, it's really important that you have a good discussion and a good understanding of how the program works. So, drawing on what we talked about a couple slides ago, does chia seed health drink convert better than chia seed nutritional drink? Now, for the first time, we actually know, and we know real time because we can see the data that comes in from our paid search account. Maybe we're running both of those keywords to two different ads, and very simply, maybe one says $10 off orders of $50, and another says 20% off orders of $50 or more. And we can see. So let's say, for example, that chia seed health drink converts at 15%, or it gets a 15% click rate, for example, and chia seed nutritional drink only gets half that, at maybe 7 or 8% click-through rate. And then we see that the $10 off order converts at 10%, whereas the 20% off offer only converts at 6%, and that's the same for both. So clearly we would say, all things being equal, we want to use on our website and in our email marketing copy and our direct mail copy and in a blog post, chia seed health drink over chia seed nutritional drink, and we want to offer $10 off as opposed to 20% off, purely based on the actual data that consumers are showing us about their behavior when they interact with our keywords, with our ads, and with our products on our website. And now you can start to see for the first time, many of our businesses have marketing departments. A lot of times we use our gut. Well, this is an opportunity for us to use very precise information and make very smart decisions about what copy we want to use and in what venue for the first time. So remember when we talked about SEO? What keywords do we want to win? What keywords do we want to use in our copy and maybe in our meta tags? You can see how paid search, which has no limit to the number of keywords we can try, no limit to the number of different ad copy we can try, and we can send them to different pages on our website. We can now get that correct funnel, the keyword, the ad, and the landing page that is going to win by default and be the most effective for us. So we like paid search a lot, with the one caveat that you have to understand that you can spend a lot of money and there's no guarantee of success on the other end. Okay, let's go to slide 25, and we're talking about email marketing. Now, you picked up that we can talk a lot about email marketing, probably hours, but I just want to drive home a couple points. There's the first sentence. A strong email marketing program should contribute half your total online revenue. Jeff already touched on that, but it really is that important, and it really is that effective. You've worked hard to produce your customers. Now, how are we going to continue that relationship and continue to communicate with them? Any serious e-commerce program is going to have a well-thought-out email marketing plan, and it all starts with the ability to capture email addresses. The best place for you to start is on your website. So look at your own website right now, and when Jeff talked about best practices and the truths of online marketing, here's another truth. Are you making it easy for someone to sign up for your newsletter? Are you giving them an incentive to do it? Is it on the top half of the screen, or do they have to scroll to the very bottom and look through gray font somewhere? Are we saying, hey, sign up now and get immediate savings and special offers, or do we just have a blank box that doesn't give any enticement to sign up? These are little marketing things that should be part of the best practices, all with the design of growing our database. So maybe we ask ourselves, why is it really that important to grow our database? Well, clearly the person was interested enough to be on our site, and they've clearly shown an indication that they want to receive future messaging for us. That's a big deal. That's already a warm relationship. So now that we've got that, how do we continue to solidify that relationship? Do we immediately send a confirmation email with engaging content to build trust and to solidify this new budding relationship, or do we wait days or weeks to do that? From there, do we have a systematic email program that has a well-thought-out sequence of messages and promotions that align with special dates that are important to the customer, or certainly special dates that we all know as consumers in the Western Hemisphere that are important? Maybe they've given us their birthday. Maybe they've given us their anniversary. We all know when 4th of July or Memorial Day or Labor Day comes, certainly Black Friday and Cyber Monday, we need to have well-thought-out promotions that line up with that. Maybe our product isn't really maybe the chia seed health drink isn't a 4th of July drink, but when we put an American flag and fireworks in the background and we say, hey,
take 4% off one bottle or take 40% off, 100 bottles, and we just tie into the play on the number 4. Now we've made that a specific promotion for our drink when otherwise, we might not have had any cognitive reason to assign the two. So with the ability to communicate with our new customers frequently, we have the ability to pull levers whenever we want to, so to speak. Okay. The final part of that is when we get sophisticated, we actually want to have behavioral-based email marketing where our message is based on activity that they might have on our website or information they've provided to us. Okay, let's go to slide 26, and here's just a good example. You can see for yourself. See the 3 red circles on the page if you have it open? This was an email that was sent directly to me from one of our clients, but whom I also buy products from. And what do we note there? The top circle, they've got a clear call to action. Time to reorder your fiber. In the middle one, they've said, hi, Adam. Who doesn't like a personalized email? So clearly in my mind, I'm important enough to this company that they know how to call me by my name and not just, hi, potential repeat customer. And finally at the bottom, they've said, look, because we feel you're a special person in our world, we're going to give you yet another 15% discount. So that's the hook, if you will, that's going to make me reach for my back pocket, grab my credit card, and purchase. So just one good example of a very effective email strategy, all based on a pre-existing relationship that I have with the company. Okay, let's go to slide 27. The last main fundamental, if you will, talk about is partner marketing. And while this is a fairly complex type of program, I'll keep it very simple. Partner marketing, think of it as one-to-one marketing relationships with super networks or super affiliates who have the ability to put together very impressive, complex programs designed specifically for your business and potentially drive a lot of revenue because they control a large audience. So I think that makes sense to everybody. So do we ever wonder, how did company X get their product on Rue La La or on Groupon or on the front page of Target or on an airline's internal shopping network? And the answer is partner marketing. There's a professional or a team that goes out and interacts with that organization, calls Target, their marketing team, and says, look, I have product X, and I would like to put a comprehensive program together. And if you see the second paragraph on that slide, there's just an example. What would it look like? A, banner placements on a category page. B, including sponsored content and ads in a newsletter. C, preferred listing on a home page with a unique promotion. And D, a lead generation campaign that we can follow up with our own marketing content. Those large entities have the ability to put that all together. Now the trick is to make sure we don't spend a ton of money without any guarantee of results, and that's where you need a dedicated professional staff and team to make sure that happens. Okay, let's go to slide 28. Last thing we'll cover, which I think probably is maybe on a few folks' minds, saying, what about social media? I mean, do you not consider that to be a bread and butter program? And the reason we put an asterisk by it is because social media, one, means different things to different people, and it is still where the internet was 15 years ago, social media is today. And I think everybody understands, at least in their mind, what they believe social media to be, and I think we all understand it's important and that we need it, but most of us don't really know how to measure it. And so we feel like we want to have it in our lives, but we don't know at what point we should jump in and what we should be paying for it. For startups and for any company that feels they need to educate their target market to become better known in their target market, or certainly if they need to control conversations that are happening about their product or services, social media is an absolute must, but what is it? So social networks can be important. As we all know, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, they might be absolutely critical for your business, but for other businesses, they might not be. But for all of our businesses, there's one truth. There are important conversations taking place as we speak on the internet somewhere about your product or your service, and that's where your passionate potential audience is hanging out. So do we force them to come find us on our website, or do we go seek them out? And maybe they're on a blog, or maybe they're on a website that has discussions, onboard discussions. The point is, if we can find those locations and we can actively engage with them, we are now meeting our potential customers where they are and engaging with them in the format that they want to be engaged in. And that's the power and the beauty of social media. You need a talented team to be able to execute that, but I think that last sentence hopefully makes sense to everybody. It's the one opportunity to engage with the people that are interested in our product or service, where they want to be engaged and when and how they want to be engaged. Okay. Let's go to a quick review on slide 29, and then we'll open it up. Mike, I'll hand it back to you for some questions. So this is a really simple slide, but after all that detail, I think it's nice just to look at a simple slide. Now, it has a little bit of math here, obviously. So what programs would be right for our company? And the question is, if you think about an agnostic, methodical approach, let's do a discovery session. And we can either do this internally and or use a source like our company or companies like ours to determine what the market shows available and what we know internally we can do from a specific company standpoint. Once we know that, now we want to evaluate the potential growth programs that are available to us and our ability to invest in those. And then see, do we need to go out and find someone else to help this happen, or do we feel from a financial or a personal standpoint, or can we do this internally? And then that should lead us to a program that makes sense for our company. Okay, gang, I appreciate your attention. Really went through a lot of stuff fairly quickly, but I hope that gives you a nice flavor for what Jeff talked about, which was why due diligence is important, the type of information that we can put together to present to an investor or a company, and then how we actually take that information and implement it based on some common sense, bread and butter programs with a little bit of expertise and hard work. So, Mike, and by the way, everybody, the last slide there, you obviously be more than welcome to contact us at any time. We're happy to visit and be helpful in any way we can in some discussions that you might be interested in. Mike, I'd like to hand it to you maybe for a couple questions and final wrap-up.
Great. I've already received a few email questions. Can the moderator give instructions to the audience about asking questions over the phone?
Sure. At this time, if you have a question, all you need to do is press *1 on your phone. Once again, *1 will get you into the question queue, and we'll take all those questions in the order that they're received.
Great. I'm going to start. We've got a couple questions that have already been emailed to me, but I have one just going back to social media. It's just a general question. I don't know if there's anything more you can say a little bit or give a little bit more color, because social media is such a hot topic, particularly for brands. Is there anything you can dive into a little bit more about what's the hot areas of social media? What aspects of social media for brands do you see or should folks be paying attention to?
This is Jeff. I can take that. So probably over the last 6 months of the year, one of the things that I really saw with social media from an actionable perspective was the actual recruitment of members. For example, the use of social media to recruit people who will like your brand. For instance, I'll give you one number. We have a client that recruited 800,000 likes or 800,000 fans essentially on their Facebook page, and now are receiving about a $30,000 return per email or per promotion to those likes. So it's become very transactional. So for instance, it might be, win this, and it doesn't have to be the actual asset you give away doesn't have to be very big. It could be, win a free X, and people like you. And I know that sounds sort of
Is that gamification?
Gamification, is that what you said?
Yes. Yes.
Well, it's essentially you're basically just out there recruiting, and you're actively recruiting. So if you see somebody that's in your space or you see somebody that's out there, you might place an ad. And instead of placing an ad for your product, it's really more important to sort of place an ad for something that you're giving away for your product. And again, it's just something that's become a lot more transactional for everyone. In other words, that's something everyone can do, and it's something to where everybody says, well, they just want the free product and they're never going to buy. We're not seeing that in our results in terms of when you do recruit members, we're actually seeing a pretty significant result. So let's say that we spent $1.50 to $2, that's $1.6 million to get those 800,000 people. And so now that we're making this $30,000, you obviously need to be sending an email every week, and so now your return on that is, let's say, that's $120,000 a month. It's going to take some time, to get your investment back. But what happens is those social media people then, that crowd, if you will probably double this quarter. So we'll go from 800,000 to 1.6 million followers. And so there is a very nice transactional way of growing, whereas I think for a lot of people, social media is just this nebulous, what do we do? Why do people follow this group and not that group? And what I'm telling you is that people follow people because they're taking action to get them. There isn't this just desire that people wake up in the morning and follow a certain brand without that brand paying for it. So I think that's probably the other point I was trying to make.
Okay. And one other kind of tag-on question to that. Do you think it's important to kind of develop, a specific person of a company to have to be the face so that they're being followed, or can they just, work off the brand's name and attributes?
Well, it's tricky because it depends on who that person is. If that person is, something like the mascot, the chicken or something, that's one thing. But if it's a human, if it's a person, you obviously want to make sure that that person is locked up with some sort of golden handcuffs, because you don't want them having 500,000 followers and then they actually go to your competitor and those followers, follow. So especially on smaller companies, I don't think you're gaining this aspect of having a personality is something that I'm somewhat down on, but I think that's just because I'm very transactional. Like, I'm very much, what did I pay, what did I get back, versus sort of the more touchy-feely thing. And again, so I think that could be my bias.
Okay. Good. Thanks.
Hey, Mike, this is Adam. I apologize to interrupt, and I would also just add a little color to what Jeff said. For example, Kim Kardashian is a famous example, but we know that she gets a $25,000 check when she tweets about something, and I think we all understand why that is. It's kind of crazy as it seems sometimes, because she moves the needle and she can make things happen. So if you're going to have a personality, that's something that we look at, and we're not against, but I just reiterate what Jeff said. We like the product as best as it can to speak for itself. And even for a startup, which is tempting because your product might not be well known, if you can get a celebrity sponsor, for example, we like that transaction as opposed to them becoming the overall face of the brand. And I would give an example of Geico. Geico obviously is an amazing position because they can do this because of their size. But when you think of Geico, who do you think of them immediately in their commercials? Well, you think of the little gecko, but you also think of the cavemen, and you think of a lot of different things. So they hedge a lot of their bets. So they're not beholden to one personality, if you will. So I hope that adds just a little color kind of to the question that was asked. Yeah.
I've seen with brands, we've seen a lot of companies, startups in particular, they try and get in front of a celebrity and pictures taken of them, and maybe this was 5 to 7 years ago, and now I guess the thing is to try and get them to tweet about your brand as opposed to having a picture taken of your new energy drink. So I'm going to go to the questions now that were emailed to me. I'm going to start with one, and then we'll see if anyone's on the line. What is a typical conversion rate for a new website, specifically unique visitor to sales rate during the first 12 months?
Okay, this is Jeff. So I'm kind of the statistics nerd here. So it's a great question, because conversion rates are oftentimes misstated, because some people quote conversion rates at the cart, and some people quote conversion rates from the initial visit. And then there's also multi-step carts. So if you have a 4-step cart, your conversion rate is going to be substantially less than if you have a 1-step cart. And that's another one of the little, I don't want to call it a trick, but that's the other little obvious. It's an obvious now. So we obviously want to have single-step carts if we can, because we don't want anybody dropping off on steps. And so my answer to that would be that when somebody gets to the cart, which is what I measure. So we measure it all, but what I care about from an industry reporting standpoint is that I want to see from the time they get to my cart, I want to see about a 2% conversion rate in the first year in order for me to feel like we're doing everything we should do. And then what will happen is that number will begin to be skewed, especially in the nutritional business, because you have a lot of different you have loyal customers that start skewing that number. So somebody might go to a conference and report they have an 8% conversion rate. And so what you want to do is you want to look at new to file customer versus customer already in the file and report two separate numbers. If it's below 2% and then somebody in the meeting goes, well, 1%, isn't that kind of the thing? The answer to me is no. If it's below 2%, then something is going on. Something's wrong. If it's 4.5 to 7%, then you probably got a following and you don't have enough people running through the cart. So I try to answer that in a few seconds. It's a little more complicated than that, but I would say start at 2% as the floor.
Okay, great. Thank you. And the moderator, is there any people in the queue?
Yes, there is. We have a question from Kurt in Chicago. Kurt, your line's open.
Great. Thank you very much. Adam and Jeff, thanks for the presentation. Very helpful. Follow-on question with respect to email marketing and its importance. Any guidance that you could give on knowing when you're approaching email fatigue with hitting your email list or parts of that email list over and over again?
Yeah, so this is Jeff again. It's a very, very good question, and let me tell you what most people did last year that we saw, especially in the different spaces. They sent an email Monday, they made money. They sent an email Tuesday, they made money, and then they just kept sending them. So then every day other than Saturday and Sunday, you essentially kept making money. So what I track personally and what I would watch personally is unsubscribe rates. Because people, and even look at yourself, the number of times that you will actually read an email has become so few that you really have to stay in front of the customer as much as you humanly can, because your competitors are, and they care, some of them care less, some of them don't have this, they don't even care about email fatigue. But as long as you're staying, under 1% unsubscribe, and then the only other thing I would add, and we've got some great people at our group that are even better, way better at me than describing this. The other thing I would add is that I would always be segmenting those customers who are on auto ship or those customers who are loyal to you, and I would always have one of those groups getting a certain amount of email, and then those others. But bottom line is, for those that have not bought from you, the way I look at it, you paid to get them in some way, whether it's staff, whether it's outsourced, whether it's real money on advertising. So the bottom line is you want to hit them as much as you possibly can until they make an order, and then start sort of ramping things back. But if you have a 3% unsubscribe rate or a 4% unsubscribe rate, you absolutely know you've reached, email fatigue. So as long as you're under 1%, I think you can send, very rapidly. I mean, you can send pretty much whatever you would like.
And that's 1% for each email. So each successive email, you go, if you lose more than 1%, you're probably approaching fatigue. If you keep successfully sending out emails and you lose 1 or less percent off of that list, then we're probably in the clear.
Yeah, and what you'll find is you'll find that Tuesday and Thursday morning, you absolutely want to concentrate on time sent. So if you've got 10 million email addresses, for instance, that could take 7 or 8 hours to send with even the nicest system, even the top-of-the-line expensive system. But if you have, let's say, 100,000 email addresses and you can get them all out, then you really want to watch your day parts, like what days and what times of the day are seeming to get you the most orders. And again, my view is orders. I don't care about opens and clicks. I care about orders. So I want to track that. That might take you 2 months, to be able to track that and put that all into place. And then the more sophisticated email systems now, obviously, now that you know that, okay, they're a buyer of this, they're a female, they live in this part of the country, so they have this time zone. I mean, it can be it can be a pretty big difference. I'm not saying it really rules the day, but you can pick up an extra 3% or something on sales if you do that level of tracking.
Got it. And what do you consider a good order rate on a percent of emails that go out?
Oh, boy, so now I'd have to have the calculator, because this would be, if you're getting an 8% open rate, and you're getting a 1% click-through rate, and then from there you got a 2 to 5%. I'd like to see, and I really wish a lot of our staff is listening in on this, and so they're chatting me, a lot of good stats here, which is kind of fun. But and hopefully there's not a whole group back in New York, jumping out the window that I'm saying these things. But I think that you have your 8% open, you have your 1% click-through rate, and then from there, I'd really like to see, 3 to 6% sales, because these people are supposed to be in your list. They're supposed to be. So I would, again, divide the list between the new-to-file guys that have never bought and the guys that have bought and gals that have bought consistently. I want to see 6 to 8% from your people who are consistently buying, and then, if you can pick up 2% to 3%. And then, again, never be afraid of massive offers. This is the other thing. You always got to go to the boss and fight for massive offers. A lot of times when you use this amazing offer that nobody can resist, we're not doing it to make money. We're doing it to see if the list is even alive. Is somebody out there? Lose a little bit of money, but then that parses your email, because if you send out 100,000 and 50,000 don't even care, your conversion rates get all screwed up. So that's why getting it, measuring from the cart, and then keeping a good handle on how live this list is. And we've been told we have a list of 600,000 people, and by the time we got done spending 2 months, there was 20,000 people who actually had a pulse.
Great. Thank you. That's a very helpful perspective.
Sure. Thanks.
Hey, Mike, this is Adam. I just wanted to add, I think I've decided I'm the color commentator here, but one thing I think might be helpful, Kurt, also, you clearly have a lot of interest, and it sounds like probably an opportunity with your list. I would recommend perhaps getting a hold of a firm like ours to just do an email assessment for you, and I think it could be really effective. Just what Jeff touched on. What's the quality of our list? We have 100,000 people on our list, but how many people are actually active and potential customers? Is our subject line, if we look at the history of our subject line usage, is it effective? Is it getting people to open? And that's why you saw Jeff, and it's difficult to come up with these numbers, because if your subject lines, for example, are terrible, it affects everything downline because no one's opening the list. Once the subject line gets us to open, are we really effective with the marketing copy and the links that we're using in our email? Are we getting call to actions for people to buy, or are we much softer sell? That really has a big impact on whether we're going to sell our product. And finally, where are we sending these people to? Are we sending them to some general landing page and they have a lot of extra work to do before they figure it out? Or are we making it really easy for them by sending them to if we're talking about selling Nike tennis shoes, are we sending them to a page that only has a pair of Nike tennis shoes and maybe an easy navigation bar? Are we sending them to categories of tennis shoes, bicycles, hiking equipment? They've got a lot of work to do. So I know that's easy to say, but all those are so critically important when you're trying to decide, are we being effective with our emails? Well, there's so many parts of the puzzle that need to come together before we can really determine whether we're being effective or not, that it might be helpful to have an email program expert give you a quick evaluation and maybe provide some thoughts and suggestions. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Moderator, is there any more questions in the queue?
There are no other questions in the queue at this time.
Okay, I have another question, a couple more by email. You are establishing an online startup, but I've found through keyword search that there are a lot of competitors. Few good keyword with high competition, and it is likely to take a long time to rank. What would be the strategy?
Oh, okay, so they're saying it'd be a long time to rank organically because of the high competition. So, it's always a tough one when you've got a situation where Google is going to make all the money. And so one of the things that you can do is make very, very sure that when you place a keyword or when you place a pay-per-click ad, that ad is not for them to buy something, but for them to sign up for something. So what you're really trying to do in that case is harvest them from pay-per-click to email. So you will want to do this irresistible offer, whatever it is. I will come clean your car, or I will come do something with for you if you give me your email. Here's this free report on this. And so often on the higher competitive words, everybody's trying to, what I call it, dating versus marriage. So marriage is when you say on pay-per-click, please buy my product, and then they don't buy the product, and therefore it's not monetarily feasible to do the project. If you date them and you say, look, hi, we're a new product in the marketplace. We'd love for you to give us a try. And I don't want you sending them product necessarily or anything. I just want you to send them a 7-page ebook on something, do something, or enter to win a $10,000 trip to Zimbabwe, who knows. Get their email address. And then what you do is you decide, okay, I'm paying about $3 per email acquired, and now you can talk to those people 10 or 15 times over email until they unsubscribe. So it's whenever I have a high traffic, highly competitive, very expensive word, and I've dealt in words that are $30 a click, it's always a dating versus marriage game. So date them.
Great. Thanks. One more last question. Some companies are reluctant to try partner marketing or affiliate marketing because they feel they'd be giving up some control of how their brand or product is perceived or communicated. What control do companies have over how partners present their products or brand?
Hi, this is Adam, and that's a great question and one that we deal with almost universally when we have a client that we do affiliate marketing for. The good news is there are a lot of things that give you complete control of your program. Nutritional supplements, as I think many of us on this call know, for example, is a regulated industry, and there's this issue of compliant content and non-compliant content, and whether the two can be used in the same publication or not. And that alone obviously gets businesses very uncomfortable when they can't control how their content's going to be used. So the first firewall that you should know about is that you can set up, I'm going to go use Commission Junction as an example just when I speak, because that's probably the largest affiliate network in the world. So on Commission Junction and on all other networks, you can, first of all, put any limitations you want to your program, and the affiliate has to agree to all those when they sign up. Now, that doesn't mean they're definitely going to comply, but at least you've got it on record. So you're making your correct good faith effort to exactly determine the limitations of your program. That's one, and that's important. And legal staffs can write that up and make it look pretty intimidating, and it's important the wording that you use. Secondly, you can design and comply with the ability to either automatically approve or manually approve every application that comes in. And for all of our clients that we work with in the health and nutritional space, we manually approve, and I should say we manually evaluate and then potentially approve all applications. And our process of approval is based on many conversations frequently with the company, and if they are fairly uncomfortable, we walk them through. We have one of their staff go through each evaluation with us until they're comfortable that we are evaluating and making sure that we have good constraints on any applicant that comes through. So that's probably the most important part of the process. What we do as a firm, individually, which we think is important, is that every new affiliate that signs up for our program, we contact them and we remind them again of what the stipulations are, and we have an open line of communication with them because we want them to be successful. But we tell them, we're going to be looking at your content and your website every day, and we don't tell them this, but for 30 days we look at that site. And it's a lot of work for us, but we want to make sure that they're not changing their content around a lot. And it's helpful because if we see something that, usually it's because of poor workmanship and not because of bad intentions, but maybe they misstated our product, and maybe it's to the point where we feel it potentially is a problem, we can immediately contact them and get it fixed, or we can take them out of the program. If they've been consistent for 30 days, then internally we look once a week for the next period, and then internally our program is then if they've proven after 2 months that they're consistent and good players, and we still look at what they've got out every month just to make sure they haven't changed. In addition to that, because of our experience as affiliate managers, we know the big players, the key players in the industry. And in nutritional supplements, for example, there are probably 20 to 25 key producers that we would go after, and then another collateral 25 that are going to produce another 20 or 30% of the revenue. We work with them so much, we know them by name, that we can in confidence tell our affiliate client, or our client that wants to do affiliate work, that we have existing relationships with these people. They're all legit. If there's anybody that applies that's outside of that group, we're going to give a serious scouring of their capabilities and make sure that we walk before we run. So I could tell a little bit more, but hopefully that gives you kind of 2 or 3 or 4 good firewalls that are in place to make sure that you have as much control over the process as possible. The reason people do affiliates is because they work and they drive revenue. So you have to balance that desire with the potential for losing some control. With a firm like ours and with the controls that you set in place internally, you can keep a lot of that control in-house.
Great. Thank you very much. Is there any other questions in the queue?
I do not see any questions in the queue at this time.
Okay. Well, good. Well, we're right about at an hour and 15 minutes, so we hit the ending point. Is there anything left, Adam and Jeff, you'd like to say before we conclude?
This is Adam. I'd just like to thank all the participants for joining today. We really hope you found it useful. And once again, we would be very happy to visit with anybody for a free discussion about your thoughts or ideas or questions that you might have about an e-commerce online growth program. Jeff, anything from you, sir?
Yeah, no, I just want to say thanks again, and it was very nice to talk to everybody, and thanks to NCN for putting this together.
Great. Thank you, everybody, and hope to see you at Expo West or at our investor meeting April 29th and 30th in New York. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.
This officially ends today's call. Thank you for your participation. Have a good afternoon. You may now disconnect.